Alright. So, introduction handout, overview of DBT. DBT stands for Dialectical Behavior Therapy, which was created by Marsha Linehan, PhD. This therapy model has been significantly researched and validated to be effective with a variety of serious mental health conditions. The D in DBT stands for dialectical. Dialectics are things that seem to be in conflict, yet both are real and true. So, dialectical in the chocolate cake syndrome is if you really love chocolate cake and you have a hard time with chocolate cake making you gain weight like snap, and you're sitting right in front of you, there's chocolate cake. Looking at that chocolate cake, you haven't had breakfast, you haven't had dinner last night, you're really super hungry and you really love chocolate cake, and yet you can't have all that fat because it's not on it because you haven't ate anything healthy yet. So that tension of wanting to eat that chocolate cake and wanting to not eat that chocolate cake at the same time, like a rubber band pulling at you, that's dialectical. These are the skills for dealing with those situations. Or same example, maybe you see someone and you want to be a nice person, but you really don't like that person, but you want to be a nice person right at the same time. Dialectical. What are you going to do? You're going to use skills so that you can behave in a civilized manner and tolerate the distress of being, in a situation where you have to look at a person that you really don't want to look at, maybe, or something. That can make a lot of difference sometimes. Not that it's like easy. There's nothing easy about not eating that cake, not smacking that face, or getting that face smacked. In my case, both. I've done both. So, the D in DBT stands for dialectical. Dialectics are things that seem to be in conflict, yet they are both real or true. The term comes from philosophy and is used to illustrate that there is usually a kernel of truth in each perspective in a dialogue or argument, even when there is a difference of opinion or belief. Being dialectical is seeing that reality is black, white, and a lot of shades of gray. It's when there is more than one right answer. Sometimes there is no good answer, and every now and then individuals have to pick the lesser of two evils. Dialectics can be balancing self and others, giving and getting, needs and wants, work and play, winning and losing, etc. Dialectical means that two ideas can be true at the same time. There is always more than one true. Okay, I'm a little creeped out. This is the edited version. It's a little bit different. Okay. The dialectical means that two ideas can both be true at the same time. That chocolate cake. Wanting, not wanting, right at the same time. There's always more than one true way to see a situation, and more than one true opinion, idea, thought, or dream. And I'm just going to say, I'm not sure that I agree with that statement in the completeness of it, but that's the way that it's written. Two things that seem like or are opposites can both be true. That is true, because you want that cake, you don't want that cake. Everything with me is just going to come back to simplicity. So, all people have something unique, different, and worthy to teach us. That is true, even your enemies, even our enemies. A life worth living has, everything is true, not true. But everything has more than one truth, so that's just in my truth, that's a truth. That all people have something unique, different, and worthy to teach us. From my perspective, in my truth, that's been a true fact. A life worth living has both comfortable and uncomfortable aspects, happiness and sadness, anger and peace, hope and discouragement, fear and ease, etc. I think we all can pretty much agree that. All points of view have both true and false within them. Some examples of dialectics. You are right and the other person is right. You are doing the best you can do and you need to try harder, do better, and be more motivated to change. You can take care of yourself and you need help and support from others. Other examples of dialectics that happen in the real world: wanting financial stability while having debt, wanting to be thin but overeating, wanting to be treated like an adult while acting like a child, wanting fewer problems while sometimes making life worse than it needs to be, wanting to avoid trouble while breaking rules or committing crimes, wanting to be loved and cared about while pushing people away. Ineffective dialectics might be wanting to be loved and staying in a violent relationship, having compassion for others while hating oneself, asking for help and not accepting the help that you get offered. You're like, well, no, I wanted something different. That's the drag about asking for help, for sure. Having a lot of anxiety and ingesting enormous amounts of caffeine and or nicotine. Trying to, and that depends on, there's a lot of, that's my opinion again. It depends. I don't think that the nicotine is ever good, but coffee has been proven to have some benefits, side benefits, as far as, like, some kind of, like, cerebral something or other. I'm always in support of coffee. So, trying to manage depression through the use of alcohol and or other drugs. Medical marijuana has been proven to be a big helper. I used to be totally against any kind of like prescription drugs for anxiety or depression or anything, and I completely did a 180 on that. I think that for sure those kind of drugs can be used as a crutch to just take such a high dosage of them that you're just sort of like a zombie and you don't really feel anything. But if you're feeling like huge amounts of like just too much distress, and everybody's level of distress is your own personal thing, so you can't be like having somebody tell you, oh, that's not so bad, that's not so bad, because the best thing is rely on yourself. If it's so bad for you, then it's so bad, and you go in there and you squeak and you say it's so bad. So yeah, I'm not into relying on stuff to the point where you become emotionally numb, because then you're not processing, then you're being sort of like spiritually lazy or mental health lazy, because you're not processing stuff, you're just doping it out. But definitely the appropriate medication in the appropriate dosage is absolutely useful and can be critical to being able to give yourself enough space, emotional space, to even work on stuff. So that seems a little bit judgmental statement to me, to say, oh, you can't use it, when in fact there is a known self-medicating mechanism that we rely on. And that was probably one of the reasons why I got kicked out of group, is because I would bring up these points in group. I'd be like, how dare you be a supremacist and make fun of people and say rude things like, what are you, high? It's like, my medication is legal now and you're not allowed to say things like that to me. So, there was kind of some supremacy and some bullying, definitely, that from my experience, from my perspective, I'm allowed to say that that's definitely how I felt there. And I was glad to be able to be like, well, sorry, we could all take the same test. And the teacher says that I grasped the information. So anyway, ineffective dialectics may also be wanting to prevent mental health symptoms but not taking medication as directed. So either trying to manage depression through the use of alcohol and or other drugs, or not taking your medication. See, that's what I'm saying. Define medication in a non-supremacist way. And I don't advocate for alcohol, really. I think that alcohol makes people, too much alcohol is really easy to get into. It's just really easy. And it does something to the brain cells. Makes us a little bit duh. On the other hand, I am going to be open and say that I think I already went through this, but yep, I'm definitely a medical marijuana proponent, user, and I feel like it is a gateway drug, and it took me through the gateway out of complete emotional disorder and gave me enough space to heal. And I don't think that I would have been able to walk my healing journey without the psychological pain relief of marijuana, medical marijuana. And definitely I wasn't able to complete my healing process until President Obama legalized medical marijuana, so that was a freedom for me. And then to begin completing my healing process, and then I wasn't able to fully complete any kind of healing process until I was able to find a sheriff that could hear my story and was willing to help me have equal access to the law that other people had. So I was able to defend my space because otherwise my body was not sacred, my body was not safe, my physical residence was not safe, and it's still not that safe here, but at least I have the ability to say, hey, my space is being invaded, my boundaries are being invaded. So when I'm definitely I'm a proponent of the border wall. So when I say I want the wall, it's because I definitely have experienced not being allowed to have my own boundaries. I haven't been allowed to have my own boundaries on my property. People are offended that I lock my door and they can't just come into my house and mess my stuff up. And I had a lot of experience as a teenager and as a, from about the time I was like 8 or 9 until I got married, and I would say my marriage was not great at not being invasive, so I'd say until my husband died, and until I got this safety pin locking mechanism, until I got the safety of the sheriff, I have had no security in my life, not my body, not my physical boundaries, until I was able to have a sheriff's help. And so that is no joke. And so the rest of my mental health came from President Trump and from the sheriff. So I'd say that I was able to get equal parts healing from my mental health, from doing the skills, from having access to the law so that I can protect my own boundaries, from the law that was willing to say that I had the right to protect my boundaries, because not all the sheriffs will say that I have the right to protect my boundaries, and legalization of my medication so that supremacist people weren't able to look down on me for my medication the same way that they might look down on an insulin person, or I mean, my medication for me is the same as insulin for a diabetic person. So that was President Obama, and then President Trump really advocating for law for everyone. Everyone gets equal law. It doesn't matter whether you're on high or below. So those are the things that I really think have been important to me being able to have any access to mental health. So, and that relates to this in some way. Oh, I don't know how, but that is the case. So, with any effective dialectics, individuals will benefit from using DBT to achieve balance with their competing needs. So, the other need that I had met, that was the last thing that I wanted to say. And there's a Maslow's hierarchy of human needs. I think it is some hierarchy of human needs. But the other need that I had that I got met for this last year, I'm not going to say it's going to go forward and I'm going to be able to keep it together, but in this past year, 2 years, I've had financial support, so all my bills were paid, so that the organized crime syndicate hasn't been able to manipulate my bills until this month. I've had legal support so that I could have my boundaries, my secure boundaries of my house, kind of, and my body. I've had my medication legalized so that there wasn't able to be an artificial supremacy created between my needs being less moral or less ethical or, more stupid than other people's needs that are cooler than me and more popular than me. And then I had President Trump. That makes it so that the law is enforced for everyone, high and low. And that's what gave me my internet, because until President Trump, I literally had no access to my internet, and I would not be able to be making this video and have the mental health outlet of being able to be like, what can I do? Oh, there's nothing I can do, and be like, oh, well, I can make a video that no one will watch. So yeah, I wouldn't have that. And I wouldn't, frankly, have a working computer or anything, because without the sheriff that's supported by President Trump, I wouldn't be able to keep my door locked or keep anyone out of my house. And that is the frank truth. And if somebody wants to take me to court and argue about it, I would be more than happy to go to court, because that has been my experience with this place that I live in since I was 12 years old. And I was not allowed to even be able to understand what was happening to me until President Trump came and said that I have the right to understand it. And until the Republican Party actually said that we have the right as a country to have the wall and have boundaries, and I have the right to not have people come in my house when I'm not home. Even though they do, I at least can know, because I use this safety pin mechanism, and so I can tell. And then they come in different ways, but I have mechanisms there too, so it's just a constant battle. That's it. That's my second video. Now I'm taking a break because